Chapter 6. The next day, with the polar orbit high long gone from sight, I went aboard the MCQ-3 for the first time. There are sims and then there is reality. And let me say that no sim, no matter how good, matches reality. The problem with a sim is that you know it's a sim. Reality, on the other hand, well, it's real. Lakofa, as my sponsor, was my tour guide. Agela had been chosen by the usual process, so she was sponsorless, and thus had both a disadvantage and an advantage. The disadvantage was that she had no one to go to for answers. So she stayed hung with me, which was nice. The advantage she had was that she didn't have to worry about embarrassing her sponsor. Lakofa's welcoming words to me were, "Just try not to be a complete idiot, okay? That's all I ask." The MCQ-3 was built along fairly standard lines. She was a single-hue cultivated crystal, ovoid rather than spherical. There was dockage for 104 crew, essential and supernumerary. But of course no one provided lift. We could lift if that familiar motion made us feel more comfortable, but lift was irrelevant, unnecessary. A small taste, I suppose, of what an airfoil world would be like. The MCQ-3 existed within a force field that contained an atmosphere and would, we hoped, deflect most space debris. Should the force field ever fail, we would lose our atmosphere. The backup system was a maze of pipes buried within the spars and masts that delivered breathable air to each dock. You simply pull the tube extension from the collar, thus, Lakofa demonstrated. And you place it into your air hole, thus. Then breathe normally until the force field comes back up, or until you freeze to death, whichever comes first. What if we're not docked? Agela asked. What if we're in one of the perches? There are emergency accesses there, Lakofa said. Good question. You're thinking ahead. That made me open my eyes a bit. Was Lakofa looking for some face with Agela? She wasn't moaning again, was she? No, I would notice that. I shook the sense memory out of my intakes and ruffled my wings to put it behind me. Didn't work. Other guys will warn you about being monned. What they don't talk about is how long the effect lasts. What if we're flying through zero space when the force field fails? I asked. Lakofa favored me with a withering glare. We would drop instantly out of Z space and appear back in normal space, where you would once again breathe through the tube or freeze to death. Oh, and by the way? It's hard to fly in a vacuum. So if we lose atmosphere, you'll want to be docked. I had a flash of myself beating my wings helplessly, futilely in space while the MCQ-3 zoomed away towards some distant star. Well, no one ever said space travel was safe. Generation 9561 claimed to have lost nearly 10% of Generation 9547, the first generationals to attempt space travel, and 6% of Generation 9548. Even as recently as 9558 they were losing substantial numbers in space-related accidents. Then again, individual generationals die pretty easily. It's kind of what they do. Corporate life forms just don't put up much of a fight over every interchangeable member. Follow me, stay close, don't touch anything, Lakofa instructed. He flew upward and we fell in place behind him. Up and up through Byzantine, unfamiliar spars, past dockages, some that were still being installed and polished. He led us to a perch like nothing I'd ever seen before, not even in the sim. It was a tipped bowl perhaps 50 feet across, all filled with blinking lights, readouts, and video displays. All of it constructed of metals and carbon filament and flat cries. It was faintly claustrophobic, all that opaqueness wrapped around you. What is this? I wondered. It's not in the sim. No, Lakofa said. This is the backup command center. In case of catastrophic damage to the core crystal, these machines can be used to continue flying the vessel. How? This unit is self-contained. You can't see it, but it has its own engines, generates its own force field. In the case of catastrophic damage to the crystal itself, this pod can detach, break free, And keep flying without most of the crew, I said, unwilling to believe anything so monstrous. And it's not in The Sims. Lakofa's eyes were hard. No, it's not in The Sims. And it won't be on the Unanet at all. You need to understand something, this isn't your old life. This trip is a little more than an innocent scientific excursion. And it's definitely not a game. His tone sent a shiver through me. Agela and I exchanged significant looks. We were keeping station outside the hard-edged, darkened perch. Floating far above our home crystal, well within home air. But all of a sudden I knew we had crossed over a boundary. What's out there? I asked Lakofa. He shook his head slowly. We don't know for sure. But 2 years ago a vessel of unknown origin popped out of Z-space just 1,000,000 miles from us and lit up our orbital sensors. The drop pods are released only once every 6 months, as you know, to prolong the life of the sensors. But by good luck we discovered the ship just 2 months after it emerged. We sent a drone out to intercept and survey. The drone never returned. 2 months later we got the answer from another sensors drop pod. The alien vessel had fired on our drone and destroyed it using some sort of high-energy beam weapon. There were no life signs aboard the ship. It had been programmed to defend itself, I suppose. We modified a drone with a defensive force field and faster engine and sent it back to intercept the alien vessel again. This time we got lucky. The alien craft fired at the drone, but before it could adjust to the defensive system, the drone had glue-docked to the alien vessel and was draining its computer of data. Just one problem, as the drone detached for re-entry, the vessel fired again and damaged the drone. We recovered it but were only able to save a part of the data. How much do we know? Agela demanded. Lakofa hesitated. Then, you to understand this clearly, I hope, none of this ever becomes known to the people at large. I mean that on penalty of closure. He repeated it slowly, deliberately. On penalty of closure. That rocked me. Closure? For revealing a secret? They would undock me? Cut me off to free flight till I died of starvation and loneliness and finally augured into the lava fields below? Every alien race we've encountered has been benign, Lakofa said. But this race, the race that built this ghost ship, was not. The evidence is that they respond with extreme violence to even the slightest provocation. Extreme violence. They call themselves Capassins. Since the ship emerged from the direction of Quadrant 3, we assume the Capassin planet is there. The mission of the MCQ-3 is to contact this race and attempt to reach terms of peace. What if these Capassins are not interested in peace? Agela asked. Lakofa smirked. Then we'll hope to get home with enough information to allow us to meet the challenge. One thing we know, the Capassins don't know we exist. If we meet them we will keep our location strictly secret. Sometimes, he added thoughtfully, the things that seem to be problems are actually blessings in disguise. What are you talking about? Generation 9561's home planet has such low background radiation that they communicate regularly through transmission and reception of radio waves. Those waves propagate, you know. He waved his hand vaguely skyward. Generational waves spreading endlessly through space. Who knows who will receive and perhaps comprehend those transmissions? Who knows what attention the generationals may already have attracted? We, on the other hand, remain invisible to the galaxy. Maybe not such a bad thing.